Well, today should be a very interesting conversation. We appreciate you all being here. We'll be watching you on the Restream chat as well as the Rumble Rants. Beatrice Rosen, she's a Franco-American actress known for major film roles, including in The Dark Knight, Chasing Liberty. She's appeared in numerous television series, Charm, Smallville, Harry's Law, to name just a few. You can follow her on Instagram at Beatrice_Rosen, R-O-S-E-N. Same on X, Beatrice_Rosen. And I ran into her on a French radio broadcast, and I thought, I need to interview her. She has a lot to say. She's got her ear to the ground. She lives in both worlds, America and Europe, and she has interesting insights and is paying attention to what is going on in both countries and the relationship between and amongst these so-called continental organizations. Something is going on. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to give you the history of it. I've been wanting to have a conversation like this for quite some time. It should be very interesting. We'll be with Beatrice Rosen right after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. Those of you that remember the history of this show, we were sitting here in our home in the darker hours of COVID, and Susan and Caleb said, why don't you do something here? You got a lot to say about what's going on right now. Maybe we should do a streaming show, which they put together. And I kept saying over and over again throughout that whole period, like I felt that I was in the French underground, broadcasting out to the world in a clandestine fashion, and offering information about something you weren't supposed to speak on because I'd already been canceled. And then we sort of graduated over to talking to other clinicians who had been canceled at that time. Those people included Dr. Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, who now, in a Shakespearean turn of events, will be the head of the NIH. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we spoke to him a couple of times, who is going to be our new HHS secretary. And if you remember back, first time I spoke to Robert Kennedy, he said, my goodness, you're so courageous to talk to me. And I thought, what the F is going on here that a doctor and a lawyer are talking on a digital platform? You need courage to have a conversation. There's something horrible going on. And now we have the USAID financial scandal sort of unexposed, and you can now start to follow the money and see who was doing all this slamming down of our First Amendment rights and who was infecting other countries with some of this nonsense. And one of those countries was France. I've been listening because of all the mob behavior during COVID. I got very interested in the French Revolution and mob action, and Le Bon, his book about. I've been doing a lot of reading about mob behavior, and then as you know, we talked to Matthias Desmet about mass formation, and Dr. Cariotti, and so we've been focused on this. But 1790 became a focus of my affection for a while because of what happened there in that time. And so I started watching French. I started watching what's going on there. And they, for the last year, have been saying, what is up with this wokeism? Where did this come from? What is going on? Well, guess what? You look no further than USAID. That's where it came from. But it's taken roots there. And Beatrice Rosen, as I said, is an actress. She's well known for major films, Chasing Liberty, Dark Knight, multiple television experiences. Instagram, Beatrice_Rosen, R-O-S-E-N, and Beatrice_Rosen on X. Beatrice, there she is. We really appreciate you being here, and I want to get your thoughts. Thank you. I know it's late there in France, but we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. What a crazy time to be alive. Seriously, like we're in crazy town.
Well, that was what. By the way, who is Andre Burkhoff? He hosts this radio show that you were on, that I saw you on, and I just like listening to him because he's very provocative. Is he known over there?
Yeah, he's a very famous French journalist, very popular, and he's one of the only journalists who wasn't following the legacy media, narratives, and he was very brave during all the recent crises that we've experienced.
And he at the beginning, I think maybe this would attract me to it. At the beginning of his show, he plays old footage from the French underground. The carottes sont cuites. Like, this is me. I've been doing this for a few years here. And so
it's so relevant.
I got and I saw you. Well, you were on there spitting fire. And so let's start. I mean, I think one of the most interesting things that you had mentioned to me that's happening right now for you is this silencing of a talk show, which is something that, again, near and dear to my heart, that I was, media was silenced for years during COVID, but it's still going on there. So tell me what happened.
So basically, I'm on this talk show with this very famous talk show host who's a big star in France, and his name is Cyril Hanouna. And basically, he was orchestrating debates on television, and he was letting, all sides of the story being, everybody was able to talk on his show. And apparently it sort of pissed off some very powerful people. And now the whole network is being shut down, basically, at the end of this month. This network called C8 it's over. It's done. Like, you've never seen something this crazy in a democratic country. Like, it's insane. So the show, we don't know yet what the show where it will go, if it will continue or not. I mean, it's insane.
Well, you know what you need to do. I'm a little advice here. You can do the same thing we did over here, which is start digital platforms and streaming shows and put them up, and you will destroy the media. You will destroy, because people will be pissed at this. They'll want to hear things that they want to hear. They want to hang out with you and hear your ideas, and they will leave the legacy media. That's what's happening here. It's coming down like crazy because of the same kind of stuff.
Yeah, he'll probably do something like that. He's a crazy personality, larger than life. I mean, every single day there's over 2.5 million people watching his show. This is like the #1 talk show in the country that they're shutting down. So it's absolutely insane. I mean, it's super successful. It's not, a little underground show. It's a major show.
And so who do we lay the blame at the feet of? Is it Macron? Is it Bayrou? Is it, where is this coming from? Is it the blob, as we call it over here, just some bureaucratic nonsense?
Right. It's bureaucratic nonsense. But as you guys are seeing with the USAID scandal, all these little agencies and committees and organizations are being created to basically take the responsibility, take the blame, and cover the transparency of it all. In my opinion, and that's only my opinion, I think the president is behind this decision because the show was getting a little, I think, dangerous for the powers that be.
And to that point, I think I was already watching and listening to French radio, I think, at this point. But the elections, to me, that ended up in this tripartite split in your National Assembly was mystifying to me because it looked like Marie Le Pen had it locked up. And then they go, no, sorry, we're going to do it again. We didn't like the outcome. We're going to run it again. And Mélenchon got in there. Oh, look at this. What is this, Caleb?
Oh, I'm just showing on screen a report about why people can't watch the show in France on Rumble right now, because France basically has banned Rumble because they wouldn't shut down certain accounts that they wanted them to censor. And Rumble's like, no, that's against our whole mandate here. So you can't watch us watch this show. None of her French fans can watch this show in France unless they have a VPN, of course.
On Rumble. Yeah, on Rumble. But they're watching it on YouTube and X and whatnot. But let's help people understand. I couldn't understand what happened there. And it felt like Mélenchon did some weird horse trading that sort of undermined Marie Le Pen and what the people wanted, it seemed like.
Okay, so basically there were 3 different votes, and none of them were won by the president's party. Okay. Mélenchon, as you said, on the second round of that third vote, basically, he made an alliance with the presidential party. And so they sort of overcame Marine Le Pen, but not really. I mean, basically, the presidential's party lost every single election, all those 3 elections, and yet they are still there. That's the magic of it. They just stayed in power. So really, France is going through a really rough time. I think it's really counterproductive because people are very angry, and the anger is growing and growing every day. And that's why I think it's nourishing all this censorship. Like you just said, Rumble is censored. C8, that the network I was talking about, is censored. Some talk shows are censored. They want to censor X. I mean, they're panicking, basically. They're panicking, and they don't control the narrative anymore, it seems like, and they're in total panic, and their only way to go is just to censor everyone, and it's insane, and it cannot end well.
Unfortunately, close to happening here. Yeah, is there any? I guess things are not. Politically, things are so weirdly divided there. There's no talk of leaving the European Union, is there?
So that's a totally taboo topic on the legacy media. Okay. You can't even mention it. I mean, it's just like, it doesn't even exist. And a lot of people would want that. Of course, there's a propaganda telling people that if you leave the EU, then, I don't know, it's the end of the world and we're all going to die and disappear and horrible things will happen. Yeah, it's totally taboo. So you even during the presidential debates or any election debates, you can't even, it's not even a topic that you can talk about. It's just absolutely insane because we're in a situation where France doesn't have its sovereignty anymore. Everything was given to Brussels and the European Parliament, and Commission. And we're sort of like in submission under Germany. And it's a major problem right now. It's a major problem. And to me, it's really the biggest problem. And nobody can talk about it.
I hear hints of it. I hear hints of it when I hear people talk. Just little sort of complaints about Germany is what I'm hearing, and I started thinking about this when the movie Napoleon came out. I watched that film and I went, well, that didn't happen. So I'm going to go find out what did happen. I go, whatever this is not the history. So I started looking into it, and I started listening to some French historians, and in the course of it, I started hearing them saying in their more recent lectures, Napoleon is part of who we are, and we need to start figuring out what it is even to be French and to embrace our history, not to wall off parts of it because he had a misstep in Guadeloupe. It's like, yeah, that was not good, but you can't cancel our history. And oh, by the way, what is French anymore? And I thought, it's immigration is going to be a big issue here too. So I thought, this is coming. Something like what happened in this country is about to happen there.
Yeah, we have a major identity crisis. In the past decades, people were like, you couldn't even have a French flag. Like if you had a French flag on, at your door or on the street, you would be called a racist. So we were made feel guilty about everything, about our history, about our colonies. It doesn't mean that we need to embrace, and say that everything we've ever done is great, but we need to embrace who we are and just, know who we are as a people, as a country, and we don't anymore. And that's really the root of a lot of issues right now. And with the woke movement, I know you want to talk about that later, but with the woke movement, it also makes everybody feel guilty about, in a way, it's sort of a paradox because it said, the woke movement is about accepting and tolerance, but in the end, it's about self-hatred, and so there's something wrong with that.
Well, it's also sort of primitive in a way because I'm no expert in this, but I was listening to one of these lectures, and this guy was saying, we cancel Napoleon because of what happened in Guadeloupe. But the reality is he freed all the slaves in the West Indies, in the French West Indies. And you have to remember that sugar was like oil back then. He had to figure out a way to control the sugar. And in Guadeloupe, there was an uprising, a slave uprising that he put down because it was a royalist uprising. He had no choice but to put that down, and then was condemned. So if you knew your history, you'd go, it's horrible, but that's what he had to do. And he freed everyone everywhere else before we got to it, And so do French have to hate themselves because of that?
Also, the problem is people are confusing everything. I think France and America have very different histories and totally different. I mean, France abolished slavery in 1794 for the first time. Then Napoleon Bonaparte reinstated it. And then again in 1848, it was definitely abolished for good. And just our countries are totally different. And I think sometimes people take concepts and apply them to different countries with different histories, and it just doesn't work. And we need to stop to do that. The Americans need to stop to do that. The French people usually import a lot of American concepts and forget that our histories are totally different. So we need to really stop doing that. And we need to look at our histories in a very realistic way, pragmatic way, which is, I think, what you're getting at. And we need to accept that we made mistakes, that some things were horrible, but they're also sometimes taken out of context, and we're taking our 20-25 glasses to look at a situation that was in the 1800s or whatever. So that doesn't work as well. And we just need to learn from our mistakes, but just move forward and stop feeling guilty about what our ancestors did, because that, we're not responsible.
It's extra weird in this country. It's extra weird in this country because I feel guilty about something this country did, even during the time in which my ancestors were in the Ukraine trying to run away from the Bolsheviks. It's like that. It's just so it's mind bending a little bit. But anyway, so let's talk about the wokeism. We're going to dig a little bit into the history before the break, and then get more into the present day. But I was aware early on that the French post-structuralist had gotten an unusual foothold in this country. And I actually heard a French philosopher about 10 years ago going, I don't understand why you were so interested in these. They were not good. They had no utility. They didn't help us understand the human experience or reality any better. We have no use for them in France. And you are stuck with them, and you've got preoccupied with them in Canada too. And that kind of moved forward into this post-structural world that got captured by the critical theory, which was invented by a bunch of Marxist attorneys in Connecticut. Did you say the evolution goes back even further?
Yes, I dedicated a whole episode of my own podcast to the woke movement, and I invited this guest who wrote a book about woke capitalism. So he's sort of an expert, and he went way back. And his theory is that the woke movement starts actually in 1926, and actually France has not fathered that movement. It was actually from an Italian philosopher called Antonio Gramsci, and also from the Frankfurt School of Philosophy, this German philosopher called Marcuse. They came up. They were all Marxists. By the way, Gramsci and Marcuse, and they came up with the beginning of this whole concept, and the concept of repressive tolerance. Their theory is that to liberate tolerance, then you need to be intolerant against all the movements from the right, and toleration of movements from the left. So it sort of explains why, cancel culture, where all that comes from, because wokeism is a movement that says, you need to be tolerant, you need to be acceptant, but in the end, they end up like canceling people and canceling movements and canceling. But that's actually the concept of repressive tolerance. So it goes really way back to 1926 and the Marxist philosophers of that time in Europe.
I have heard of Gramsci before, and I'm just looking at his stuff here. He was, obviously Italy got infected by all this. And he was a big Lenin supporter, it seems like. But he wasn't so happy with Mussolini, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these folks go back to Rousseau, right? Where tolerance is humans have to be forced to be free, right? Isn't that Rousseau's things? Man everywhere in chains and needs to be forced to be free, which is intolerance and the name of tolerance, which is the most bizarre concept of all.
Yeah, that's the concept, repressive tolerance, and that's why it cannot work, and it always leads to totalitarian movements at the end of the day, because you'll always have somebody more woke than you, and somebody, you'll never be pure enough, and we all know where that rhetoric takes us. I mean, it's horrible. It's just like there's no way back. So,
And you don't have a First Amendment there that you can point at to sort of push back on the cancellations and the censorship. But is there a challenge? Is there something that you can use to get at this or adjudicate it?
So it's actually, in France, we have a law for freedom of expression. It's not the First Amendment. We're not, absolutes of freedom of expression. Our freedom of expression has limits, which is homophobic, racism, anti-Semitism, like all of these things like that are totally illegal, and you can be jailed for that. And I think there was sort of a balance that was okay. That was actually, I liked our French law about freedom of expression. But lately, and that's what they're trying to do with X and the European legislation, the DSA. I don't know if you've heard about that, the freedom of expression online regulation from the EU Commission. They want to go beyond our French law on freedom of expression. And actually, that's what Elon Musk talked about many times, is that he will abide by these countries' laws, but won't go beyond the law. And basically, the DSA is asking him to go beyond the law and censor, opinions or disinformation or misinformation. But we all know that that's totally arbitrary. And, there is no ministry of truth, and it's very dangerous. And we saw with the Twitter files and everything that's coming out right now with USAID that you mentioned, that scandal shows that, disinformation is in the eye of the beholder and, of the person basically who pays for the programs.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm going to take a little break here. You mentioned, I don't remember, it was on the air when we were getting ready to heat the mics up, but 1984 and the sort of surveillance state. And I'll just hint at what you're going to talk about by telling people we're going to talk about 1984 and trash cans. Poubelle. We'll talk about that. We're here with Beatrice Rosen. It's Beatrice_Rosen on X and Instagram. We'll be right back after this. Well, you've heard me praise Paleo Valley's grass-fed finished beef bone broth and the delicious meat sticks. I now want to turn it over to Paleo Valley founder and CEO, Autumn Smith, to tell you about her company's food philosophy.
I'm here to help create the products that make healthy food convenient in our modern world. The diet and the food you're consuming is absolutely related to your digestive health, to your mental health, to every aspect of your health. The devil's in the details here. And not only do we have to attend to every single ingredient, we have to support a system with whole foods. And so when we source a product, it's going to be organic, it's going to be tested for pesticides, and then it's going to be grass-fed and finished or pasture-raised. It's going to be raised on regenerative American farms.
The protein sticks that come in 8 varieties are likewise impeccably sourced and prepared.
And the fermentation process came about because there was an ingredient that I didn't like in meat sticks that's pretty widespread. It's called encapsulated citric acid, and it's derived from GMOs and then hydrogenated oil, and it just melts into the beef stick, and you don't have to label it. That's the thing. You can label it citric acid.
Make 2025 a year to cut out the chemicals and feed yourself correctly. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off your first order, 20% off when you subscribe. That is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley. If there was ever a time to be rationally ready, it is now. I urge you to consider getting one of the emergency kits from the Wellness Company, because TWC has 7 different kits that are customized for a variety of situations. Wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look at each, considering, say, what we've just been through in California with the fires. I was happy to have the field kit on hand, and the Contagion kit in particular is suited for what is being predicted to be the next outbreak, or avian or bird flu. Of course, the same experts from the COVID era are freaking out about this potential pandemic, but don't panic. Just arm yourself with the meds you might need if this comes to pass. Contagion Emergency Kit contains ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, Tamiflu, and budesonide, an inhaler that is good for airway reactivity and tightness, as well as reducing viral replication in the airways. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off your purchase.
If you want to see stars, you have to watch them dance, dive, or go to rehab with Dr. Drew.
Dr. Pinsky told me that you are having some issues.
He says I'm depressed.
Are you?
These field kits are still very, very popular. I'm delighted to have this thing. I've got everything in this one. I'm cracking up because Susan is out there, Caleb, on the restream, trying to make sense with some of the French participants, and
I'm getting them all riled up.
Good, keep going. And I'm going to bring Beatrice back in, Beatrice_Rosen, where you can find all her work, and of course on movies, Dark Knight. Beatrice, Asselineau, is that the talk show host? Am I getting that right?
Asselineau, no, actually, he's a politician. Yeah. He's one of the few politicians that you never see anywhere because he wants to get out of the EU. So since it's a taboo question, he's never invited anywhere, but he's pretty popular, and he's on social media. People follow him. There's like a couple of those politicians who think that way, but they're never invited anywhere. So, it's democracy.
There's people talking about it here on our chat stream, and il peut sauver la France is what they're saying about him.
Yeah, so he has a big fan base.
Yeah, there's a lot of faith put in him that he could save things. Is there a strategy? We'll talk about the trash cans in a sec. We'll talk about the trash cans, and then I want you to talk a little bit about what, I mean, I don't hear people speaking as honestly as you do oftentimes on French media. I think people are afraid of being canceled. I don't think you are for some reason. But talk about the trash cans, and then talk about what you want people to be doing to kind of combat some of this.
Well, I think you mentioned it about yourself. I think my life changed with COVID because I was like, okay, I'm going crazy. This can't be our new reality. Like I cannot live in this world. In France, we actually had the QR code pass. We weren't allowed to drink our coffees standing up or sitting down. I forget which one. I mean, this was like the scientific rule. I mean, it was just so insane what happened to us.
Well, we had this, I was in France right when that was going on, and I had to go to a pharmacy and pay to get a special QR code that documented my vaccine status and all this BS in order to walk into a restaurant typically. But don't worry, in California, we had similar craziness as it pertains to standing when you drink your coffee. We were allowed to stand on the beach. We just couldn't put a towel down and sit on it. And eventually we got to where you could put a towel down and sit on it, but you couldn't sit within 20 feet of somebody else or something. It was a level of insanity that just, people need to look at themselves and think about, first of all, that they went along with that. And secondly, who mandated that? And let's go at those people a little bit and never effing listen to them again. But go ahead. So you can't drink your coffee standing up. And what did you think?
Right. And we actually had a name for those beaches that you're mentioning. The insanity was like, we put a name on everything. Our beaches were called dynamic beaches. You weren't allowed to sit down. And there was like a way around the beach, and you weren't allowed to buy socks or toys for your kids, but you were allowed to buy. I mean, it's just all those rules. Oh, and another great one. You could go in a ski resort. You could ski, but there were no gondolas allowed. So what people ended up doing is that they would hire taxis to bring them up the mountain. I mean, seriously, and they would ski down. Seriously, this time just changed my life. And before, as an actress, I never spoke about politics. I never said anything about anything. I was just, in my lane, doing my work, But, when I saw my child that was 6 years old wearing a mask 10 hours a day, even to play sports, which doesn't seem very sanitary to me, to not be able to breathe when you're exercising. I lost it. I was like, okay, that's it. I can't passively accept this new normal. This is not going to be the world I want to live in, and I want my kids to know that I did not agree, and I tried to do something about it by speaking up, and that's it. So,
yeah, and back to, I and thank you for doing so. And back to the sort of intolerance in the name of tolerance. The people that were mandating or enforcing all those rules, they need to look at themselves too, because you would have been a prison guard had you been around in 1930. That's who you would have been. And that's what you were going along with, something very similar to that kind of a hysteria. But are you on anybody's radar? Are they watching you? Are they worried about you? Are they monitoring your trash cans because of this?
I guess so. I can't really get into it too much because, I'm in enough trouble as it is. Yeah, I think, they don't like people speaking up, and, they're canceling a whole network because of, freedom of speech, basically. But to go back to what you were just saying, to people who just, bow down and accept certain situations, to go back to what you were mentioning about the garbage cans, we are now having the garbage police. So these people are accepting jobs to basically go from door to door to open with a cutter, people's garbage, and go in there with their hands to see if you recycle properly, and and if you don't, you get a red sticker on your trash can, and they won't pick it up. And, and that's for in the first phase. But the second phase will be, you will get fined. It's such a level of dystopia that I can't even believe that I'm saying what I'm saying. It's just, where did, the world lose it, basically? It's just insane. And I think what's happening in the States, though, because you were saying, what the hell is going on in France? I think what's happening in the States, not that people love Trump, or it's just people, it's given people hope that things can change. And because people are so depressed, people are so down, so depressed. It's very sad. Like the level of depression is just through the roof, especially since COVID, but not just because of it, also because of this whole, it's just people are desperate. People are desperate. And I think what happened with, the election in the States, it's just whether people like Trump or not is not the question. The question is, it gave people a lot of hope that there's hope there, something can change. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, I was listening to, again, another radio thing. Some businessman came back. There was actually a big public figure over there, I guess. I think it was from one of these luxury brand guys. And he came in and went, he felt the hope and sort of the positivity over here. And he said coming back to France was a douche froide, a cold shower. And yes. I thought, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually, you're talking about Bernard Arnault, who's, one of the richest guys in the world. He's always he used to be always in a battle with Elon Musk and Bezos about being the number one richest guy on earth. He's the guy who owns LVMH, Louis Vuitton and Tiffany's and all these brands. And actually, he was a big Macron supporter. And so the fact that he went to the Trump inauguration and that he came back to France and started saying what you just said, that he said, it's a big deal. It's sort of like you can feel that, things are taking a different turn now. And just our government is just the only thing that they know what to do is taxing people, more taxes. And I think what Elon Musk is doing with Doge right now is inspiring a lot of French people, and is showing by contrast that, there is another way. or in Argentina with Javier Milei. I think all these people, Elon Musk, Trump, Milei, are showing our country that there could be maybe another way, and we don't need to accept that we're the most taxed country in the world,
With a huge deficit on top of that.
Yeah, crazy deficit. I mean, our debt crisis is through the roof, and they lied about it, and it's just a disaster, and it's just really sad because everybody, I think, loves France. It used to be such a light, something to look up to, and culturally, and for so many reasons, and it's just really sad to see it decline so much.
It is a shame. The French do know how to live. They know how to live well, kind of thing. And it's sad to see the depression setting in there because it puts a cold blanket on all that. Well, I have a couple of sort of not personal, but curiosity questions. I also, so from the perspective of this country, 1790 looks like a horror, like this horrible thing happened in France. And all these people were killed, and the terror, and some of the terror out in the provinces was even worse. We just don't hear about it. We just hear about the stuff in Paris. And, I point at it now and go, remember, but Robespierre's committee was the Committee for Public Safety. Safety uber alles. Whenever you hear people talking about safety, that's where it goes, everybody. Just pay attention. But anyway, I also noticed when I listened to French media that I swear to God, 10 minutes doesn't go by before they mention something about 1790 and the rights of man. And in a very, very, very positive, inspirational way. And it sort of struck me as an American, like, oh, you look at that as strictly a positive. Is that true, or is there a conflicted feeling about it?
It's totally true. You have it's exactly on the spot. When you look at the Olympics, for example, the opening of the Olympics, they actually recreated a scene from the French Revolution, and it was very bloody, and it seems, like you said, it seems very shocking because, of course, in France we don't have the death penalty anymore, and in a way, it was the death penalty for the French Revolution was the death penalty for the king, for its family, for a lot of aristocrats. It was terrible. It's very violent. But it was also the beginning of, like I said, it sort of mirrors what we're seeing now, what we were just talking about, where we need hope. We need hope. We need to know that things can change. And I think with 1789, it takes us back to a place in history where somehow a small group of people, because remember, of course, at that time, you didn't have television, you didn't have all of that. So at the end of the day, it wasn't the whole country that stood up. It was, a relatively small group of people that, just launched this revolution. And it inspires, and it's also the beginning of the Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen, the Declaration of the rights.
That's what I said. The rights of man comes up all the time.
Right.
And that, of course, was a good thing, even though if you really look at those folks, there's a lot of scoundrels in that. Mirabeau was a ugh.
Yeah,
a lot of whitewashing of who those guys were.
Absolutely. But I think when people think about that time, they really think about universalism and really beautiful values, and the end of feudalism, and the end of the monarchy, and the end of oppression. So that's how, and the beginning of the modern French history. And a lot of left people think actually France began with the French Revolution, and they sometimes forget that our history goes way, way, way back and way before the French Revolution. But I think, and especially nowadays, because Macron is so unpopular in France. You're right. People talk about 1789 all the time because people are fed up and see him in a sort of like a king, oppressing his people. So there's a lot of referencing to the French Revolution right now, and it's never good. It's never good because, like you said, it was very violent.
Again, looking at it from the outside, it's like, well, the Jacobins were sort of the first totalitarians, and they went on this bloody spree, and then it required a dictator to settle things down, and you guys sort of skip over that part. You sort of reject Napoleon, like that didn't happen, and we'll kind of moved on from there. But he's what put a stop to everything, and he put in the civil code. The Napoleonic Code was very important to the history of France, maybe more so than the Rights of Man Declaration.
Yeah, he did so many amazing things for France. That's why this whole debate about cancellation, about canceling him, is ridiculous. I mean, everything, our laws, everything goes back to what he did. So his legacy is absolutely huge and contributed to make us such an amazing country. So, but right now we're again at a point where a lot of people in France think that the only outcome that's possible will be violence again, and mirroring 1789. And I'm still hoping that we can get out of this horrible situation in a more reasonable way, and with voting and stuff. But the EU right now is, I think, totally unreasonable, and putting committees in place that will judge if an election was fair or not fair according to its results. I mean, all that is very scary talk, and I just hope something happens that we can go back to more democratic functioning, and that we can get back our sovereignty, and that people will be able to express themselves more in France and get the power back, because that's what a democracy is about: power to the people.
I've heard similar things from Marie Le Pen. I feel like although she gets painted with this extreme right stuff, I just hear her talking about the basics of democracy, but I'm not there. Another sort of curiosity question for me, and then I want you to think about what you want people to do. I mean, if you see what other than what you just declared, there are other things, sort of actions people should be taking. But I have, deep admiration for people who can speak two languages without an accent in either language and completely colloquially. How did that happen to you?
My father is American and my mother's French, and I've always been between the two. I grew up in France. And when I'm in the States, I forget my French, and when I'm in France, I forget my English. So, excuse me if today I wasn't like super eloquent.
You were fine. No.
Finding my words. But when you're immersed with television and people all day, you just sort of like your brain goes into one thing. But yeah, so I just grew up in France, and then I worked most of my career in the States. I lived in LA, and I worked, big studios, and I had a great experience. I love working in the States. I think people are so professional. It's just a joy to work with Americans, because they're so square, and so, they wake up at 5 and they have so much energy. In France, it's totally different. Like, people only think about the weekend and the holidays and resting and having dinner but it's just a different life.
Do you have a plan to come back and work here?
I'd like to. I was actually going to, and then COVID hit. And then you get caught up with like your kids' schools and stuff. But I'd like to go back and work in the States. I mean, the business is totally different in the States, and it's just more in my vibe. So I'd like to go back, but we'll see. We'll see. My husband's
we
Italian. So there's
we do
another
like to work
country
here.
involved.
Yeah, I get that. We do like to work here, and that is one of the things about. And I heard Mélenchon talking about the French being paresseux, and I thought it's not really that. It's more that it's just a cultural thing, where there's not an emphasis. And I kind of feel like you do need to get some economic dynamism going, or it's going to be very hard to find your way into autonomy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The mentality is totally different. I think, the culture is very different. Americans have all this energy and this ambition, and actually ambition is not a bad word in the States, where in France, if you're called ambitious, it's not good. Like, people will think you're an opportunistic, or, you just like money too much. Money talk is taboo in France. You can't talk about money. Where in the States, it's almost the first thing that people talk about, so it's just a different mentality, and there's good things in both. And, going back to politics, Macron, when he arrived, he used to say that he's a bit from the right, a bit from the left, a bit, from everything. And I think he took the worst of what the American culture can give, and the worst of what the French culture can give, and put it together, and made a party with that. And I think today we see the result of that. And I think we need to stop and make a do-over and take what's best from the States, what's best from France, and the way, the art de vivre from France, our culture, the way we like to enjoy meals and enjoy life, but also get inspired by Americans and their efficiency and their energy, and they're willing to get up and work and do the job, and that's amazing. And I admire that.
So if you were to sort of put together a roadmap forward, let's sort of wrap up with this. You haven't really declared. I don't know if you're comfortable doing so. Oh, by the way, about the money talk, before I get into that, I had a French friend who once schooled me. He said, in France, you're not allowed to define yourself by what you make and what you do. You have to define yourself by what's in here, by what you know. And that you try to impress people with that, not with what your job is. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when you're in the States, the first question people ask you is, what do you do? Like, to try to understand like how much money you make, and, where you are on the, like, what social status you have. In France, you just don't do that. It's sort of impolite to do that. So you have to talk about different things, about like maybe cultural things, or it's just a different values, just different ways.
I think they would call it sort of crass if you talked about what you did for a living, that kind of thing. But paint me a picture who you're supporting, who we should look for as a way forward politically, and what you want people to be doing if you had a roadmap that you could create.
So actually, I'm not in a political party. I don't support a political party. I have a stand where I think we're at the end of a system. We're really at the end of a system. And I think even the opposition in France, all the political opponents, they're sort of playing the game. They're in the merry-go-round.
I want to stop you if you don't mind. So you're in the fifth Etat right now, right? It's the fifth state. Are you saying there's going to be a sixth?
I think there will be. Unfortunately, I admire the Général de Gaulle, who created the system we're in. The fifth one, which we're in right now. But I think, he was exceptional And I don't think anybody can fill his shoes. And right now, and the level of our politicians is so low that I think we're at the end of that system. And I think we really need, that system was made for an exceptional man to lead the country. And we don't have that anymore. And there's no perspective of having that anymore right now. So I think we're at the end of that system. And I think that even the opposition is sort of a fake opposition. They're just waiting for their turn. And so they're not really willing to do what's right for the people. And I think we need to give the power back to the people, because at the end of the day, like I said before, that's what democracy is all about. The people need to decide for their destiny. And, you know, it's our money. It's our destiny. It's our money. It's our children. And I think we need to give back the power to the people.
Yeah, I think that is sort of happening here in this country. It's kind of the end of the managerial class revolution, and people are going back to some sort of more distributed, personal kind of empowerment of the original intent of democracies. That's a very provocative sort of prediction for the future, because I've heard it almost whispered in French media, but I thought that's what they were talking about. I couldn't quite, you know, they'd sort of move towards how the fifth estate is not kind of working. And I thought, oh, they made a sixth, another one? Yes, I think you're right. I think it is being whispered here and there. So that's very interesting. Well, listen, you did not disappoint. I appreciate you being here. Tell people about, if people do speak French, can they go listen to your podcast somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a podcast on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Amazon, Deezer, Spotify, whatever. And I recently launched my YouTube channel, Beatrice Rosen Official. And my podcast is called La Vie en Rosen. So it's sort of a play on words with my name and La Vie en Rose. You got it. And I have to launch one in English, because just to touch the English speaking world.
I just think it's important for us to be able to look at ourselves through others' eyes, you know, from another culture, another country, another continent. And you have both perspectives, and that's why I was pretty sure you'd be able to add some insights to what we're experiencing over here. Well, I hope France finds its way out. I love the country and the culture and the language, and it does feel a little depressed over there. I got to admit, and I appreciate you being a loud voice, and keep breathing fire, and hopefully they'll start listening. You did say one thing that I want to ask about. You said that the fifth estate was made for a certain kind of male leader. What about a female leader? And this is not to be, I'm not being sort of PC in saying that. I'm because French women are pretty. I mean, Marie Le Pen is pretty incredible. So what about a French female?
Yeah, I think we're at a time where there's just not that level of greatness anymore. And
Anywhere, either sex.
No. Yeah. And, you know, the education system has declined so much in the last decades. You know, all the systems have declined, and I think it just produces weak politicians. And I just don't think that any of them are fit for the job. And, you know, a lot of people support Marine Le Pen in France. Personally, you know, I gave you my opinion about the opposition in France. I think, you know, it's just, it would just waste more time. We just need, you know, to go to what's next and just change the basis of all of that.
Hear about more La Vie en Rosen, and also Beatrice_Rosen on X and Instagram. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
You got it. All right, coming up, we got a lot of big fire breathers coming as well. We have the head of the LA Times, the owner of the LA Times, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who was a big supporter of our mayor here in Los Angeles, Karen Bass, has completely turned that around since the fires. And his daughter has been running the Times. I haven't heard him talk about whether she will stay in that position or not. He's a cancer he's a transplant surgeon. Be very interesting to talk to him. Jimmy Dore coming back. Dr. Robert Epstein, Robbie Starbuck, great guest, Michael Franzese. Is that Franzese? How do you pronounce that, Caleb? I'm going to be on his podcast next week, I think.
I think you had it right the first time. But yeah, I'll look that up before the show for sure.
A lot of great guests coming. Keep an eye on it. We are back on Tuesday, and that's when Dr. Shun Shong will be in studio, I believe in our home. I think he's coming into the studio here with us. Yeah. Let me see if there's anything else coming up next week I need to mention. No, looks going to be interesting. Grace Susan will have a show on Thursday, I believe, because I think Jimmy Dore is coming in at noon on Thursday. So look forward to that. And also you might want to go back and listen to her show from this week. It was kind of interesting, particularly some of the cultural stuff they were getting into with Kanye. So have a nice Super Bowl weekend. Is that this weekend, everybody? Yep, Super Bowl. Wow. I can't keep track of everything. What's that, Caleb?
Yeah, I can't keep track of it either. I'm not sure either.
No, it's this weekend.
But I did see. Sure. What made the first thing that made me think of the Super Bowl, though, Drew, is there was that story of that plane crash that happened. I believe it was the one in Philadelphia about the little boy that saved his sister by like covering as like all the shrapnel was going. And his first question when he woke up was apparently, did I save her life? And also, did I miss the Super Bowl? And his dad was like, no, you haven't been in a coma that long. You're okay. You won't miss it. We'll bring it. We'll show it to you. You won't miss it.
So on his behalf, you better root for the Eagles. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So, all right. Well, listen, we appreciate Beatrice joining us. We appreciate you guys being here today on an earlier show. And we will be back on Tuesday at 3:00 with the owner of the LA Times here in studio with us. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.